Welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning here on Channels Television, where we just finished our conversation with Millet Bread. Maybe you should go look for it and try. One person I want to ask if she's tried is Bolanle Agbaje. She's here to discuss the commodities for this week. Hi, Bolanle. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks.
Have you heard of that millet bread?
I've heard of it, but I haven't tasted it yet.
Oh, I wish you had.
Because of this, I think it's something I would have to. Because we come here several times speaking about other substitutes and initiatives by the government, and it's such an amazing thing that some of these bread stakeholders are trying to adopt in terms of like looking for substitutes when it comes to the high cost of wheat. It's amazing. I think the only challenge that they would face is trying to change the taste and preferences of many consumers. I think if they remain in the market and they stick to the initiatives and make it stay, I feel like the Nigerian consumer would more or less find substitutes, especially if we're talking about bread at almost 1,000 naira. It's ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, and so you're one of us who believe that, or not one of us, one of those who believe that when the desirable is not available, then the available becomes the desirable.
Exactly. That's what always happens eventually. In the short term, it's always very difficult, but going forward in the long term, especially if this millet, bread seems even healthier than the wheat.
Yeah, for those health-conscious people, exactly. That would be a major factor to drive them.
And if there's no significant difference in the taste as well, I'm sure it's something that Nigerian consumers.
I think I'll try it. I'll try and taste it.
I think I'll do the same.
I know if there's really, but I'm just worried about. Nigerians, we adapt easily.
Yes, we do.
We tried it with the cassava, and then cassava was not enough.
Yes.
For the production or the baking of the bread. So what if Nigerians now embrace it, and then you don't have the raw materials, yes. Or they're stuck somewhere in the rural parts of the country. Yes. They can't get it.
Yeah.
To the urban area.
The previous guest mentioned, she did focus on the fact that the government has to, support the initiative. They can't do it alone. You always have to have the support from the public sector in terms of funding, in terms of fixing the road transportation network, in terms of, electricity as well. And those are the aspects of the economy that actually promote and boost, the activities of the private sector. And that's, it ultimately boils down to the government.
And she did say Nigeria is not broke. She will not accept.
She will not accept. You don't. Well. I think even when you talk to the government officials, a lot of them actually speak on the fact that Nigeria is definitely not. We have potential right now. It seems like we have a high debt servicing cost and all that. But if we do play our cards right, we actually impose policies. Even the IMF, the World Bank, they've come several times to give us the direction in terms of policies that we should adapt in terms of exchange rate inflation. They've tried to direct us in that sense. If not, they would have.
Yeah, but there's been criticism too with some of those suggestions by IMF that they're not really healthy for the economy. Yeah, I mean, for instance, in Egypt now, they devalued their currency, I think, in June, July.
Yes.
Now, if they are to access another, because they're in a dire situation, yes, they have to devalue their currency again.
I think we haven't necessarily tried some of those, policies. We've implemented some of them, but a lot of them haven't been tried. So it's usually a trial and error situation. You try it, you see how the market reacts to it, and then you look for either alternatives or you stick to the policies that you've more or less implemented. The fact is Nigeria is not even they're not even pushing ahead to try some of these policies, especially with the exchange rate. They've spoken severally about a unified exchange rate. That still is not the case.
Is that possible?
I think it is, in the sense that if the central bank actually draws down to focus on the policies that act there, the policies of unifying the particular exchange rate, I'm sure it definitely would be easy and more or less give positive, although it wouldn't be great in the short term, but in the longer term it definitely would boost our economy significantly.
All right, so we see that oil prices have eased.
Yes.
While, of course, liquefied natural gas is still surging.
You know something? We've been speaking about oil for the past, months. And the fact is that, although oil prices have increased by about 50% from the beginning of the year, natural gas prices have actually doubled or even more than doubled. And we are one of the, major top producers of natural gas in Africa. And, I feel like, oil is like the main, the attractive topic. And I think that's why, they leave natural gas. But right now, natural gas is doing amazing.
Natural gas is it.
It's where the money is.
Yes.
And, now that most of these Western countries are entering the winter period, natural gas would even be, especially for electricity generation, is actually going to be more significant. And one news that we actually saw is, we had spoken about the fact that a lot of these European countries are looking for alternatives to Russian natural gas, for example. And Mozambique is one of them. Although we've seen that the exports have been delayed, but we do expect that in the next week or so.
What's causing the delay of the exports?
Well, obviously, it's the first time they're exporting this particular product. So I'm sure there's some things to do with logistics and other things, other aspects of, the export business.
At least they're on the verge of exporting. Where's Nigeria?
They were actually supposed to export, I think the target was 2024, and we're in 2022, and they're ready to, push out their first, shipment. And it's actually amazing. But Nigeria, I don't know, I think we're still in the market. We produce about 22 million tons, significantly high. I'm sure, with what's happening in Mozambique, some of those NLNG would probably be looking and be trying to find out where to,
But NLNG is still struggling to meet with domestic demand.
Yes, they are, due to the fact that, lack of infrastructure and all of that. But I think with exports, it should be much easier to export,
It should be much easier than feeding the domestic?
Yes, because to feed the domestic market, you need to literally build pipelines around the area to feed it effectively, and rather than rely on, some of these trucks that move, the natural gas. Road network is still terrible, and that's, contributes.
And we still have vandalism and theft.
Yes, so that contributes negatively to the domestic, feeding the domestic market. But when you're talking about exports, it's literally just to take them to, the ports and more or less.
So we had the EU here some months ago, working on investments for this export.
So although that's great news, it's just to watch and see what comes out of this meeting that they had. But I'm sure looking at what's happening in Mozambique is actually great news for Africa, in the sense that they were not even players in the market to start with, and now they're more or less. I think it's about 3.4 million tons per year that they're looking at, and it's significantly huge, considering that a few years back it was more or less up to zero.
Yeah, Nigeria is still the giant of Africa.
You are still the giant. We still have it in there.
All right, Bolanle Agbaje, thank you so much for always being there and explaining some of these things for us. We'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you.